Light those suckers up! You want a piece of me?
What is that?
All right, light 'em up.
For the game franchises I truly care about, even if I'm sponsored by them in some vids here and there, I will still give them the Reviewski treatment. So today, out of spite of how crazy this game is, I'm giving you a flippin' solid review of this game. Probably, in my opinion, the most detailed one I've seen so far if you're on the fence about buying this game or not, or just wondering what I think about it for you weirdos out there. The whole launch is odd. My review will probably seem odd, and that's just because of how weirded out I am by this game. A lot of YouTubers are focusing their initial criticism on the microtransactions, and this is a very valid topic, and I believe it's definitely worth noting. I don't want to cover it much, and I'll cover it a little bit later in the video as well at one point, as I have much more criticisms that I believe are even more important in this review. But to sum it up, Breakpoint was kinda built from the ground up for microtransactions. The robust character customization from Wildlands, it's gone. It's replaced with one that suggests that you buy the same combat shirt that you got for free in Wildlands for $6 this time. I personally think there's bigger problems here. Don't get me wrong, you can still have fun in this game. I went into it with a really clean palette and did enjoy most of my time in the 2 days that it took me to complete the main campaign. It's the same fun you had out of Wildlands, but in a slightly modified form. The problem is this game is obviously built on the same engine as Wildlands, and this isn't a rare occurrence in game these days. Like, usually game developers make an engine and then shoot out 2 or 3 games on it before moving to a new engine. We see this with the similarities between Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. We're seeing this live with DayZ Standalone's engine being used to work on the next Arma title. This is kind of acceptable. As long as improvements are made, then slight similarities to the earlier game isn't that big of a deal. It becomes a problem to me when this game is built on the same structure that Wildlands was built off of, but it has more bugs and more issues at launch and more game-breaking, weird, controversial, problems at launch than Wildlands ever did. This game feels like it could have been launched in 2017 when Wildlands launched. Like, I feel like these two games could have been flipped and nobody would have been like, hey, this kind of seems like it was an old game. Like, Wildlands could have launched a month ago, and then Breakpoint could have launched 2 years ago. Nobody would have thought it was weird. It just doesn't feel like a new game. It doesn't feel 2019 like the new Modern Warfare, for example. The structural supports of the game have just been clotheslined out of the game's engine. More bugs, more issues, new bugs, old bugs, just ugh. You might think I'm crazy when I say this, but when Vault 76 came out, I personally never ran into too many bugs. Yeah, the Fallout servers crashed whenever we launched a nuke, but I personally didn't run into too many issues with the original launch of that game. Other people did though, so my perspective of the game was that yeah, it had some issues, but it's a functional and kind of fun game. My perspective was different from the norm. Most people didn't like it, and I was criticized for it, but I'm okay with that. Unlike books or movies, video games are interactive. Your experience might differ from mine. In Minecraft, I could struggle for survival in the caves deep below the earth while you happily build a castle above ground. I could run into glitches. You couldn't run into glitches, just based on our gameplay style. So our perspectives of the game were wildly different, especially with games that have a non-linear gameplay style like Breakpoint. My perspective with Breakpoint's gameplay loop is probably the lowest out of everyone I've seen, but for much different reasons. When everyone else's main complaint is the structure of the game being built around those microtransactions, I kind of just ignored that and played through the campaign telling myself that I should review the game first, like the microtransactions aren't even there. That maybe there's a core game deep inside here that has improved elements over Wildlands, but with, you know, those pesky intrusive microtransactions on top of it to spoil the fun. Breakpoint does have some improvements. I'd say the largest is the implementation and production value of the story. Yeah, the facial animations are sometimes stuck in that uncanny valley, and yeah, the writing and script isn't perfect.
This feels awesome. Like before I just felt like a big wimp. You know what I mean? My stomach was all acidy and I really just wanted to eat some fish tacos. But now, I mean, This feels great. Like we're gonna kick some ass. This feels awesome.
God.
All right.
No, man. But I still felt much more invested in this game than I ever did with the story of Wildlands, thanks to the story being told through decent cutscenes with solid cinematography and moments that actually had me kind of excited to see what's next. I'm not a huge fan of the whole shift to sci-fi drones and robots. I feel as if it's a forced story element that is a byproduct of developers wanting to add meat spongy enemies to the game, aka robots. It feels like the guys who developed the in-game gameplay kind of just said, let's add drones to Ghost Recon again, just like Advanced Warfighter and Future Soldier. And the director told the writer, you have to implement drones in some way into the narrative now. The campaign is just a roller coaster too. Cole D. Walker, the antagonist bad guy of the game, great character played by John Bernthal. And by the way, there's going to be some spoilers in this video. My friend Avi has watched all the Punisher TV series and told me that John is basically playing the same exact character he does in Punisher, but with a different name this time. His mannerisms, his quotes, very similar to his TV counterpart, and he's probably the strongest character that's been built out of the entire Ghost Recon franchise, in my opinion. Like, the other characters all have obvious personalities, so they're actually kind of impressive. Like, I was like, okay, there's some characterization, personalization here. Even down to the way they move in the cutscenes. Skell is a socially awkward, super rich guy who's embarrassed of what he's done. Fox likes fish tacos a lot. His daughter has terrifying stares that are totally whack. Madera is a solid character, but has really weird mouth animations that haunt my dreams at night. But this is where it goes downhill. The gameplay of half of these story missions is so flawed. And when it's not flawed, it's the same as Wildlands was 2 years ago. Stealth is ruined in Breakpoint. You simply cannot sneak past enemies as they look away anymore. Objectives have a 50-50-ish chance of spawning one of these stupid drones that 50% of the time will be glitched invisible until they are right. I'm not joking. They are glitched invisible. This is not a feature. The drones don't have invisibility. They are glitched and will fly around making no sound and no visual appearance until they're about 15 feet away from you. Where's that drone?
Not sure.
Even if these things aren't glitched, there's no way to counter them. If you shoot them down, they explode with a fiery boom, instantly sounding the alarms of the base. If you keep them up, they will eventually quickly just ambush and patrol over your head and find you way too easily. This single addition to the game caused us, a group who's probably successfully stealthed like 100, maybe 200 bases in Wildlands, we're barely able to stealth a single objective throughout the campaign on the extreme difficulty. It was just way too difficult. These drones luckily aren't in the beginner areas very much though, so your stealth experience will be better there. I was personally having a great time with the first fourth of the campaign missions, minus a few bugs here and there. And if you like the gameplay loop of Wildlands, the loop is pretty much the same here, just with extra steps. And extra bugs, and extra unfinished missions. In this mission, we're defending a lady while she uploads a file or something. The enemies are the infamous wolves, the elite special operations group, who's constantly hunting and killing ghosts on the island. How did the mission designer insert these wolves into the situation? Did they drive up in a vehicle? Did they parachute from the sky? Did they sneak up from the water or maneuver through the buildings? Nah, man. Put a single spawn point behind this house. Don't add cool VTOL aircraft to drop off the wolves. Don't add wolves that were under the water with oxygen tanks the whole time or something. Just spawn them in right there.
Right
yeah,
outside
they're gonna
the
spawn
door.
right here again. We got a minute left, so just wait right here. Everybody circle this exact spot. We'll just chill here and wait for them. Why would they not spawn them? Like, why would they have something where it's like, hey, here's 6 different spawn locations. Choose which one the enemies are farthest away from. Oh my gosh.
You all right?
What? No, no way. That was horrific.
You murdered those
What are you
people.
injured?
That
Not
was
that I can
horrific.
tell.
You didn't even see
But
any
my
of it.
sanity is hanging on by a thread. I'm gonna need therapy for the rest of my life.
Talking about spawning in enemies. Enemy bases will sometimes not have enemies appear in them until you're about 15 feet away. So you'll approach, you'll see it's empty, think nothing of it, you know, it's just an empty base. Maybe it was designed to be abandoned. Walk in, and then you have 18 hostiles instantly appear just in time to spot you and ruin all sense of immersion you had by exploring an emptied base. Yeah, it's game breaking. To my memory, I played 600-ish hours of Wildlands, probably maybe 800, and have zero memory of this glitch occurring. It occurred probably 8 times in 2 days. The AI is also brain dead. I feel like there's a substantial downgrade to every fight in this game compared to Wildlands. I don't know if that's just because the AI is the same and it's aged, or if it's gotten worse. The game relies heavily this time on plentiful numbers of AI to complicate combat, and it's really jarring. Some AI will see you from impossible angles while some stroll right by. The AI also never even reload their weapons. They just fire in bursts forever. They have no coordination other than running to you cover to cover and peeking over and then or around that cover to shoot. The coding here is it's just lazy. It's arcadey. After playing years and years of Arma 3 and feeling how immersed I can be in that game fighting AI in a well-coded mission, it reminds me just how bad the AI is in Breakpoint. If someone overhauled the AI system with only one goal to make the AI more realistic and physical in the world, like make them actually reload, make them actually drive up without being able to see them appear in the game, guarantee most of the issues I just mentioned would just be fixed with that and remove the drones. We don't want drones. Just add different classes of soldiers or something. Don't put drones. Just get it out of here. Knowing that there's actually enemies spawned in already when they're 2 kilometers out, seeing enemies and actually being able to effectively engage them at 800 meters with a sniper rifle, those are things that make that tactical experience feel real. Those are things like Arma 3 and Squad sort of things. Those are the games that kind of immerse me in a world where I go, wow, I actually need to think tactically here because there's actual people in the distance that could possibly spot me. For some reason, Ghost Recon, although it has this big map with expansive areas, it doesn't really like distance. For some reason, bullets in Breakpoint travel in a straight line for about 200 meters and then suddenly swerve towards the ground. Like the Earth's 9.8 meters per second gravity suddenly changed to the sun's. This means shooting at targets any farther than 200 meters is nearly impossible. You'll miss, and then your bullet will hit a nearby object and the entire base will be alerted almost instantaneously. How hard is it to code? I mean, seriously, I'm not a game developer myself, but I feel like if I'd spent like maybe a year in computer tech in high school, I could have figured this out. How hard is it to code a simple gravity coefficient into a bullet? Make all the bullets the same. Just adjust the initial velocity for each rifle and pistol to change their effective range. Then also adjust damage values for each weapon bullets upon impact. This style of ballistic calculation even ignores bullet drag, humidity, specific ballistics of the round itself, but it still makes such a difference when engaging enemies because this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Why is this still in the game? Is it because we can't have enemies spawn in until they're 250 meters away? Is that why nobody even thought to improve the ballistics at all here? It's terribly unfortunate that I can't use a sniper rifle to snipe. Yeah, my 3x scope on it will do great at sentry removal up close, but I'm talking about real sniping. There's so much elevation and verticality to the map here. So many cliffs that overlook bases. You know how cool it'd be if I could have a sniper set up on a far and distant cliff to snipe the enemies as I, breach the base down below? I'll flip and say it. Fortnite's ballistics are better than yours, Ubisoft. I'm sorry. Your tactical shooter is outmanned, outgunned by Fortnite. The ballistics subject here also guides me into another. Weapons feel really, really weak. They all feel the same. The sound effects just aren't punchy. There's incorrect reloading animations. Like, oh my gosh, just look at this. So when you reload an M4, you pull the mag out, you put the mag back in, you hit the bolt release, then you're good to go, rounds are ready. In Ghost Recon Wildlands, they totally forgot that there's a bolt release on an M4. Pull the mag out, put the mag back in, don't hit the bolt release, which is what every person does. Now let's go pull on the charging handle instead. Let's not even pull it back far enough too that it would actually bolt another round. It goes back like an inch. And then your bullets drop like you're on the sun and the gravity is 240 meters per second squared. And then this guy also reloads the SCAR, which is fundamentally the same gun as an M4. He reloads the SCAR like you would reload an AK. There's a bolt catch on the left side. You can release the bolt with the bolt catch. It just doesn't feel realistic. It doesn't feel like someone who actually knows their guns designed and built the weapon mechanics in this game. And it feels like it's just straight up borrowed from Wildlands. The thing thing that's different about Breakpoint that made it a not fun system of gaining new weapons and gaining new armor is that physically it does nothing different. You're getting guns that are similar to your other guns. An AK feels like an M4, pretty close. Might be slightly lower, let's say, rate of fire, slightly higher damage per round, but also more recoil. It's just that standard, simple balancing act. No weapons really feel unique. There's no crazy weapons. They just throw in just weapons and give them a standard amount of ammo and sometimes the wrong amount of ammo in the magazine. They throw it in. It just doesn't feel built up. I feel like there's 200 different variables here that I could list for you guys, but just generally, from my perspective, from a person that plays squad arma, that shoots real rifles in real life, the guns in this game are not as well developed as other games that are from smaller developers with lower budgets. And overall, what that makes me feel like is that shooting the guns themselves just isn't fun. So that ruins an entire part of combat right there, is that shooting my gun in the game is not fun. In Tarkov, shooting guns, fun. In Squad, laying down upon an enemy group with a 249 saw, fun. And why is this? Well, it's because all the weapons feel different. They are all used for unique situations, and they don't blend into each other's kind of situational, I guess, proficiencies. You can use an M4 in the same effective distance as a sniper rifle in this game. You just put on an ACOG, and you can mostly snipe with an M4, because the sniper rifles don't really go out to a far distance. Using any weapon that has a drum magazine doesn't really feel special in any way. The recoil isn't any different really. The reticle is different, but the damage per second isn't, and it doesn't feel different. It doesn't, you don't feel it. You don't see it. Again, it's like 200 variables that I could list, but I don't want to list them all because I'd waste your time. Those other games have guns that just have their own situational proficiencies and effectiveness. They take skill to kind of understand them and figure out how they're effective and where they're effective in a firefight. I mean, I bet I could even say Fortnite has better different guns that are more interesting to play with than Ghost Recon. The guns in this game are the driest part about it. When I completed the campaign of Ghost Recon Breakpoint, I immediately downloaded Destiny 2 because by the way, it's freaking free on Steam, which is totally worth it. Highly suggest Destiny 2, having a blast right now. Destiny 2 has so many different weapons that feel entirely different. I didn't even get many exotic weapons when I was playing this week, but just playing with rare and legendary weapons this week was a blast. Having tons of fun discovering new different types of weapons. Some of them sound crazy, some of them look crazy. They all feel different from each other. That is something that I really appreciate about Destiny, is that, one, the weapons are fun. When I unlock a new gun, I'm genuinely excited, unless it's the same gun as I've gotten before, which is usually just like, oh, cool, a newer, better version of my gun. That's kind of like the same effect as Ghost Recon Breakpoint. But usually you get new stuff over time. You start unlocking different pieces of guns and gear, especially if you're going to different planets and different raids and such. So the guns are very unique and different in that game, and I love it. It's a lot of fun playing Destiny because it's fun to shoot the guns. Also, the scopes are terrible. Some of the scopes are off entirely. Some of them are just like they were in Wildlands, where they have this this just looks gross. This looks like an old game. This looks like something you would see in like an old Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter. This scope in particular was in Wildlands as well, and the first time I saw it, I was like, whoa, why would anybody use this over this scope? Like, look at this baby. And this isn't even that impressive either. This is just like a simple zoom in scope, and it's not like a PIP or anything. Like, the technology that Ubisoft has doesn't have the ability to go PIP like every other game out there. When I say PIP, I'm saying picture in picture, which means there's an entirely different image that's rendering within the scope than the actual game. So example, in Escape from Tarkov, if you zoom in with a scope, it's a real scope. The outside world is unzoomed while the scope is zoomed in. Tarkov probably has the best scopes in my opinion, other than some eye relief issues, just because the location of the scope on the rail of the rifles is different for each rifle, but usually it works pretty well. There's bugs from Wildlands too. There was once this bug in Wildlands that was like mildly rare. It was where the game sometimes forgot that you had a suppressor on your rifle. You'd aim into a guard, stealthily take a shot, boom. Loud gunshot echoes through the base, all guards alerted, you look at your rifle, knowing your suppressor was on, and yep, it was on. The game somehow glitched and acted like you didn't have a suppressor on for that shot. You take the suppressor off, put it back on, the glitch is fixed. That was in Wildlands 2 years ago. So Yeah, the bug still lives in Breakpoint, the 2 years of development time, a promise of a new standalone title built from the ground up. And yet this game still feels so much like Wildlands, so much so that I'm recognizing the bugs from its predecessor. Whew. The campaign missions are bugged as well. They can be completed without even having access to that mission yet. My friends and I, on day 1 of playing the game, decided to explore a random cool cliffside base we found. It was filled with the infamous wolves. So we figured we'd clear it out to get some good XP, because wolves give you more XP than the normal guys. At the top of the base, there was this locked door in a certain room, and I saw some enemy red dots behind it, which is one of the most unimmersive things ever, seeing enemies through a wall marked by a reticle. Stop. There was a locked door there, and so I figured that possibly maybe the enemy within a certain proximity will open the door, so maybe I could attract them to the door with my gunfire. Maybe I could, you know, like shoot at them right through the door, and maybe they'd think that I'm shooting at them, and maybe it would register something that would make them come and open the door. So I shot through this locked door. By shooting through the locked door, my rounds pierced through the wood door, instantly killing one of the bosses in the game, one of the most elite wolves in the game. Oh shoot! Oh my god! Oh, I'm out of ammo. Dude, I shot through the door and the door just opened wide.
I don't know where the way is.
I'm gonna melee this wolf.
Lasagna, lasagna.
Lasagna.
Lasagna, lasagna. Lasagna, lasagna.
Alright,
Warning,
so what do we have to
lasagna.
even do here?
We gotta kill her.
That was Flycatcher! That was a story mission! What?
Wait, what?
That was a boss! What?
I got no credit for
What?
it. Thanks, Drew.
Yeah, I didn't get any credit for it either.
That was Flycatcher. One sec.
Do you get a special item for it?
Yeah, I got Flycatcher's P9. This is Flycatcher? This is Flycatcher right here. This is him. He died at the door, at the front door.
Flycatcher.
Oh my god.
I shot through the door. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So he was behind the door.
Open the door.
Yeah, I killed him behind the door. Like, I shot through it, it was locked, and then it just opens. And then we went in there and we killed the rest of the ghosts. So that is not supposed to happen because the door is supposed to stay locked. But I just killed him through the wooden pierceable door. And now we killed Flycatcher. Oh my gosh, that is going in the books, ladies and gents. That is hilarious.
I feel when you accidentally kill Osama.
When he it just doesn't feel right. It just doesn't sit well in my stomach that I can kill a boss in this game without even knowing it. If a speedrunner is trying to speedrun this game, that's the best tip. You just run up to a door. You don't even have to turn on the mission. You don't have to you can spawn in the game, get in a helicopter, fly to that place, land, kill one of the mini bosses. And man, don't get me even started on the boss fight at the very end of the game. Okay, so spoiler alert. Again, spoiler alert. You can't complain. The game is like almost a month old now, so you can't complain about me spoiling the game. Coldy Walker at the very end of the game is hidden in his base, hiding in his base, not a threat whatsoever. And you as a ghost, which again, this game is about like running away. There's a huge like contradicting element to this game where you are nonstop attacking locations. You are nonstop doing guerrilla warfare on these locations. Yet the entire story is about how you are a ghost and you're being hunted, which is very, very odd. I could probably talk about that for 10 minutes. Like, talk about how the entire game is just contradicting. You're supposed to be prey, but you're a predator the entire time when you play this game. You're supposed to be the sole survivor ghost, but you walk into the freaking home base and there's hundreds of people all around you. There's just really weird problems. But nonetheless, let's get back to the boss fight. So you go to this base, you, I believe, kill some wolves and kill a highly armored behemoth drone. I think that's how it went. I don't really remember. You go in and then you kill off some of the wolves and then you kill him. You watch a cinematic as well. And that's it. The recommended level was 150, and I believe our friends, I think we were like a 101, we were an 87, a 70, and like a 40 or a 50 or something. So none of us were even within 50 levels of the recommended level requirement, yet we still completed it. And it was also just so awkward as well. It brings in automatically within this boss fight, without even introducing any sort of kind of drone assisted bosses earlier in the game, it just suddenly brings in these drones that circle Coldy Walker's head. And they're these little green healing drones, or like shield drones that you have to shoot before you shoot him. Now, you can cheese this whole thing. I saw how, I don't know exactly which content creator showcased this method, but you could basically just go up into the stairs and then throw C4 down the stairs and kill him, which was a very, very funny video that I watched. But nonetheless, you can just cheese through this fight. We completed it on, I think, advanced difficulty when we were half the level of the actual recommended level. It was this, what? Like, and then you kill Coldy Walker, you watch the end cinematic, and that's it. So contradicting. You're supposed to be the prey, and then suddenly you just killed the man, the legend, Coldy Walker. Why even go on? Like, you basically have full control of the island now. You just killed the man, the guy that was leading all the wolves. And then suddenly they throw in this character that's the bigger guy. You know how in movies they always have, oh, the boss of the boss. Well, they bring in this guy that's the boss of the boss, and it's this weird, just squirrely dude that doesn't look anything threatening compared to Coldy Walker. And the thing is, you can't even do anything about this dude yet. It's future content. It's not even in the game yet. They're advertising immediately at the end of the game future content. There's also, if you look at the map, the most heartbreaking thing for me is when I look at a map at the launch of a game and certain areas are sectioned off until a higher level. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna grind up to rank 150 and I'm gonna get into those areas. Well, you can grind up to rank 150 which is the requirement for like the in-game raids, but you can't even do the in-game raids yet. They're not in the game. Like, that you have these islands that you can visibly see are covered up by clouds, but Ubisoft didn't even, what? And on my Twitter, about maybe, I think the day after it actually launched, I said that I would, probably give the game a 5 out of 10 at that point. Like, it's an average game. It's kind of 50-50 worth the money if you are interested in the Ghost Recon franchise. It's kind of just, it's an average game. It has a lot of problems, but it also has a lot of fun moments that can be had too. If you didn't play Wildlands and you're interested in a shooter like this, then you'll kind of have fun in Breakpoint. But if you already played Wildlands and you didn't like it, then there's nothing new in Breakpoint to really bring you back in. So I can see why some people are having fun on this game. I definitely understand it. It's definitely a fun game to play with friends, and even if you're solo, I could see why it'd be fun too. Just, it's a big game, and it does have a lot of side mission content. To be fair, it does have a lot of side mission content. I think that other than the main story, there's a lot of stuff to do on this island, but it's the immersion that you really get out of doing those things. It's the gameplay that really gets me down a lot when I play this game. It's the guns, it's the broken and contradicting elements of the theme and the story of the game. It's the microtransactions that were kind of shoved in your face within the first 30 minutes when you get to the cave base. So I think if you really, really liked Ghost Recon Wildlands, you'll like this game. This is a game that was just made to, I would say, further the microtransaction push into the Ghost Recon franchise. And I'd really, after this, am not trusting the Ghost Recon franchise anymore with Ghost Recon. I think that Ghost Recon might be lost. I really do think that after this, there might be no turning back for the franchise, especially with the reputation it's going to get from this. Ubisoft just shoved in the RPG elements from like Far Cry. They shoved it in from Assassin's Creed Odyssey. We also did a sponsor video for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, so I actually played a good bit of that. And the leveling system in Odyssey worked for Odyssey. It doesn't work for this game. It's totally different for this game. That's a adventure kind of like RPG game. This is a Ghost Recon. And I saw this picture, I believe, on Twitter, or no, it was on Reddit. I saw this picture on Reddit that was really, really good. And although Reddit can kind of be a boiling pot for just like, oh, upvote this is funny, I actually do think that this picture made a really good point. This picture depicts what Breakpoint is trying to be, which shows Destiny 2, Borderlands, Anthem, Amazon Prime Air, which I thought was pretty funny and creative, and also like Overwatch loot boxes. But what it should be is something more original original, something more like the original Ghost Recon game, which are very similar to the elements that we see in other games, like the large, combined arms warfare of Arma 3, or the gun customization from Escape from Tarkov, or the tactical close quarter elements of SWAT 4 and Rainbow Six 3. I never played SOCOM, so I don't really know the features of that, but like the teamwork of Squad and the gunplay of Insurgency, you get all these games together and you really have a solid game. It turned into this weird, like Ubisoft shoved in this weird RPG system that didn't really improve anything. If they really wanted to invent something new, this would have been the game to do it on, and they just absolutely missed that mark. When I look at Call of Duty Modern Warfare, I don't know what sort of budget they had, but I do know that Ubisoft is a large company, and they have probably as big of a budget as Call of Duty does for every single game that they can possibly produce. When I look at Call of Duty and I see that they actually got like Lucas from T-Rex Arms to do the mocap animations for reloading guns and all of the different kind of weapon handling related stuff, his motion tracking in that game is the reason that game looks so good. And that's the reason that all the gun nuts are just loving that game in particular, is that the weapons and equipment in that game is portrayed very realistically. And it's Call of Duty. Like, if Call of Duty is doing it better, Ghost Recon, what are you doing better? You're supposed to be a lot more of a realistic, down-to-earth game. That's what the original Ghost Recons were all about, is kind of one of the more realistic arcadey shooters out there. And now, what you have now is a weird mixture between, like, a really bad Destiny 2 with, like, a Far Cry New Dawn and an Assassin's Creed in there. It's just a weird mixture of stuff that doesn't work. And I feel like this was very similar with Ghost Recon Wildlands as well, where it was close. It was so close to being a kind of realistic shooter game, but I don't think the developers or the team over at the Ubisoft Paris studio is just educated enough in military equipment and firearms to really be able to flesh out a very realistic special ops game. I know I'm not a military guy, but I play a lot of military games, and I do a lot of stuff with real military gear, and I would like to think of myself as a military gear and also maybe tactics enthusiast. I like studying that stuff, which is hilarious because when you actually get the mechanics of real life firearms and equipment and all the tactical equipment that a standard special operations soldier uses, that stuff is fun to use. There's two ways that they could lean with this game. They could lean to all the way to the realism scale, where they go to Arma 3 levels and they implement every single piece of equipment, and that's what makes it fun, is that ability to use all those different pieces of equipment. Or they could lean all the way to the Destiny side, where they optimize. They make it more arcadey, but it's not really arcadey, it's more just streamlined to have a fun, fast experience. But they didn't even reach a middle ground between those two. They just stayed in the same awkward spot that doesn't really get anywhere with this sort of gameplay. What I'd suggest for the next Ghost Recon game is actually have a group of military advisors be watching over every single decision that is made in the next game. Because it seems like the Ubisoft developers don't realize how much the community, and if you go look at the Reddit, if you go look at Twitter, if you go look at every single social media and every single review of this game, most of the criticisms are, hey, this is supposed to be a special operations game, but I don't feel like a special operations soldier when I play it. A lot of the community complaints are about things that are unrealistic or unfinished, and it's just funny how simple it'd be to get this game to that point. So that's how I end this review. This game, it's a 5 out of 10. Ghost Recon Wildlands back in the day was a 7 out of 10 because it was 2 years earlier and it was something different. But this is just more of the same, and if it's not the same, then it's even worse than the title before it. It's a fun game to play with friends, but it has a lot of flaws that bring it back down to that 5. So I'll be reviewing Call of Duty Modern Warfare pretty soon. Pretty excited about that one, and we might be checking out the Outer Worlds, which is coming out actually probably the day that this is released. I'm not exactly sure if it's the 24th or 25th, but yeah, pretty exciting games up ahead, guys, especially that Call of Duty. Super excited about Call of Duty, super hyped, and it's coming out just tomorrow. So keep on the channel for that, guys. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching.